if after 10 or 15 minutes you haven't gotten people's attention, it's going to be difficult to keep it. So the goal is to start the story well, but also do something that's interesting, you know.
We start the movie off with a loving, peaceful and tender death scene and go right into a scene with incredible brutality and a very horrific death scene. What was your intention by first showing these two very different ways of people dying and then capping it off with the title card of the movie?
I want to get people's interest, get people's attention. I think that any movie, the first 10 minutes, maybe even 15 minutes, are free for the director. You can do anything you want. People are going to like, what's he doing? What is she doing? If after 10 or 15 minutes you haven't gotten people's attention, it's going to be difficult to keep it. So the goal is to start the story well, but also do something that's interesting, you know, and that I suppose that was the goal.
Certainly you got my interest.
Good.
I'm amazed at how at certain times the movie actually made me chuckle. Like the scene with the judge telling one woman to sit down, gesturing with a finger. How much of those scenes were in the script, and which parts were improvised by these fantastic actors?
Speaking of the trial scene, that was in the script, that you would do that. But then the way the actor actually did it, you know, Ray McKinnon, fine actor, it was very funny, just because his body language, it was like perfect. And, you know, he points to her and to sit down, but then the way he really made a big deal out of it with his arm was great. He did it once, I said, that's perfect, just do it like that. He goes, you sure? I go, yeah, that's good. And she was very good too. She's a very good actress, Canadian actress.
A great comedic timing.
Yeah, no, she was good. And no, that was pretty much scripted, and all the shooting at the ceiling and all that was part of the script. And then we just have to figure out, how do we do this technically? How do we have things fall down? And obviously we're not shooting a real bullet into the ceiling. We had to make it look that way. Yeah.
I saw in Colbert that you talked about using the sword of Aragon in one of the dream sequences, so I won't be asking about that. But I noticed that your character Olsen almost always has this neck scarf, which, seeing how often he used it, became part of his character. What little trinket or object that we as an audience might not even realize, would you say, helps you get into and finding the character?
Well, I always think in movie stories, or I try to incorporate them. I've done that before as an actor. I think that objects, props, you know, they have a life of their own. They can become characters in a way. They can tell a story. And there's a few different ones in this story. One that's very important is the sash, the ceinture fléchée of the father, this Quebec kind of sash that he wears and that she inherits, and this has a kind of a journey in the story. There's also a book, it's actually a real book from 1817 about Joan of Arc. This travels. There's a chair, that's the mother's chair of little Vivienne, and this travels in the story. As you say, there's this scarf, but you know, he has a different color scarf. And then when he comes back, he has a different one when he comes back. And there's sort of objects that are there that are important. The first scarf is important, it sort of plays a part in the beginning of the relationship. So yeah, I've always thought that the objects, it's important to pay attention to them as an actor, whether you use them or not, they're part of the story.
Give realism.
Yeah.
A lot of people obviously know you from Lord of the Rings, but I actually did not grow up on those movies, and I personally wanted to let you know that I absolutely adored you in Captain Fantastic. I love that movie. It instantly became one of my favorite movies of all time. I loved your beautiful portrayal of this father of 6 children living in the woods and learning about life and the arts. How much of that did you bring into this role with Adam Screen playing little Vincent, and how much of it came from your personal experience?
I wasn't necessarily thinking of Captain Fantastic when I was writing The Dead Don't Hurt, or even acting with Atlas Green, but yeah, I've worked with kids, not just in Captain Fantastic, but in many movies. And you know, there's this old adage, this saying, don't work with children or animals, because they will upstage you or it's too difficult and you look like an idiot if you work with them or something. And I've never thought that. I've always thought, I mean, I've been in lots of movies, obviously with horses and with kids, and even the first movie I directed, Falling, you know, I took on a challenge. You know, some people are, why do you want to do that? You know, there's a lot of kids in it, and winter and shooting outside and all that. But kids are just like grown-ups. I mean, all actors are different, and the best thing you can do as an actor is be flexible, learn how to act with different kinds of styles and personalities. And with directors, you know, as an actor, you have to adapt. Some directors are very helpful. Other directors aren't helpful at all. They're very nervous, or they can be very authoritarian, and you just have to adapt. Some directors like to do lots of takes, maybe too many. Some directors don't give you enough time, and you have to be really ready. You just have to adapt. And as a director, it's not just the actors, but the crew. Every person is different, and you have to find the way to speak with them in the best way to get the most help from them. You know, that's really what it's about. So I especially enjoy working with kids. I think their instincts are very pure generally, you know.
Playful.
Yeah.
I love these little moments.
But they can get bored very quickly too, so you have to make it interesting.
We see some beautiful landscapes and vast nature in this movie. What is one area of the world that feels like a home away from home to you?
I don't know, any natural environment is nice. I particularly like trees and forests, so I'm happy when I'm in a forest of any kind.
At times the movie felt modern and classic at the same time. On one hand, you have this very understanding and loving husband that definitely has his own baggage, but also supports his wife, being her own woman. But on the other hand, you have this typical old school Western cinema with a saloon, a sheriff, and rich people getting away with literal murder. Was it always the idea to tell this particular story with these characters in a Western setting, or could it also have been a different genre?
Could have been a different genre or a different time period, you know. It's a story about an independent woman with a strong sense of herself, stubborn, you know, playful sometimes. And I just thought that a Western setting, meaning 19th century Western frontier, the United States, would be a more challenging place for her to be that kind of woman. It would be more difficult for her. So that's why it turned into a Western as I was writing it. And then I thought, oh, I like Westerns. I know about Westerns. I know about horses. I've been in Westerns. I grew up with them. So I enjoyed that idea, and I started working on it right away, watching movies I'd seen a long time ago and watching many more Westerns I hadn't seen, sharing what I'd seen with the team, you know, details, design, clothing, horsemanship, all these weapons, everything. I thought, well, we have one chance to make a really good classic Western. It's a different kind of story than you usually see in classic Westerns, because you have an ordinary woman as the main character. You have two people as your leads who don't speak English as their first language. You stay with the woman at all times, even when the guy goes to war. It's very different. You don't see that in Westerns normally at all. But you can still do all of this within the framework of a traditional Western, and that's photographically, that's what it is. You know, it's like you don't think so much about how the camera sees the landscapes and the people. You just see it. You believe it's real. You know, you can imagine being there. That's the idea, and all the details, the objects, everything you see is historically accurate. The weapons, even the ethnic and linguistic diversity of the people you see in the town or in San Francisco. I was trying to be historically accurate and traditional. The music, the soundtrack is also music that could have been from that time, even though it's original music. So, yeah, that was the idea.
You did a brilliant job. I really enjoyed the movie.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you. Have a good day.